Hi there, it's Misty. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I have a card to share with you today. This is my project I made for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. Our challenge this week is use your favorite tool, and I'm still trying to decide what that is actually, because I think all my tools are my favorite. I love them all. But I guess I'd have to say my favorite tool is my die cutting machine. I have a Sizzix Big Shot. And I think that's my favorite. But I also used the stencil. That's a tool. I used Distress Oxide inks. That's another one of my favorite tools. I think you can consider that a tool. You can probably consider it other things too, but I'm going to call it a tool today. Let's see what else I used. I used... I didn't use my... Oh yeah, I used my paper trimmer. So I would say my die cutting machine and my paper trimmer are my two most favorite tools. And I would count the distress ink too, if I can count that as a tool. I don't know. What do you think? Is distress ink a tool? Or is that more of a... That's more of a medium, huh? It's considered a medium. Fine, I'm going to stick with my die cutting machine. But I think the response to this challenge is all going to be in the eye of the beholder, because it just depends on what you consider a tool, I guess. I don't know. I forgot to say that the company that we are showcasing this week is Tim Holtz. And so I am using a Tim Holtz shifter stencil. Couldn't think of the word stencil right there. I believe it's called Baubles. And this is primarily, I think this is for like Christmas cards, or maybe I just made it into a Christmas card, so now it's in my head as a Christmas stencil. But as I'm showing you here, it can be used for more than just holiday backgrounds. I'll link the last video I did using this stencil because it turned out pretty cool. And this is the only shifter stencil I have, but I love them, and one of these days I'm going to add more to my collection because it's really cool. I'll show you how these work. So in between, see where the opening is that I'm coloring, in between each of those spaces is another etched row of circles. And once I get all the color on the openings here, the ones that are open, then you shift it over, hence the shifter stencil, and you color another row. So my first card I did 2 different colors, and this one I'm showing you that you can do as many colors as you want. I was trying to do a rainbow here, so a couple times I almost got thrown off a little bit on what color was coming next, because I almost went to the orange instead of the yellow, but the orange is going to be in the next round when I shift it over. So it'll be between the pink and the yellow. But yeah, so I'm concentrating here. I'm making sure I'm getting the right colors. I better go to the purple next. And this is called a shifter. It's called Shifter Baubles. I had to look. I couldn't find my stencil. My desk is destroyed right now because as soon as I made the card, I jumped over to taking pictures of it and then straight into editing this video. So I could not find my stencil on my desk. But I found it because it was bugging me not knowing the name for sure. So I'm using these little finger daubers, which came in pretty handy. I haven't used them in quite a while. They've just been sitting in my drawer, but they came in handy for this stencil actually. Could be all the other tools I have are a little bit too big. I guess you could use, if you have the blender brushes, the smaller brushes, that would work for this too. I just had to take a peek. I had to see how it was turning out because I just love the colors that I have on it so far. I mean, you can even just do these colors and repeat them, but I had to go with the whole rainbow. I guess I never thought about it, but using every other color on the rainbow is really pretty as well. Before I put the orange on, just the pink, yellow, the teal, and the purple, that's every other color, and those colors alone would look really good together. Never thought of it that way. But so my stencil's shorter than my paper, so I'm just going to shift it over, and I'm not shifting it to the missing row yet. I'm just gonna continue on as if the stencil was wider, and I'm making sure to clean my stencil really well and dry it really well, because Distress Ink is activated with water, and I didn't want any water on it. So I'm just making sure that it's really clean and it's really dry before I put it down on my paper again. So I'm just going to use that first row on the orange as my guide to make sure I'm lining it up properly. And then I'll, yeah, sorry about that. My big head, had to get my big head in the way, so I was making sure to line it up properly. And then I'll continue with the 2 more rows, and then we'll switch over to the shifter part of the stencil. So I keep checking myself. I want to make sure I'm reaching for the right color. I would hate to choose the wrong color at this point and have to, I wouldn't start over. I would just cut it this short and make a smaller card. But it's, you know, I mean, even if I did start over, this is so far has been pretty quick. It goes pretty quick. So I could do that if I wanted to, but I have this thing about throwing stuff away. I just always have to find something to do with it. And if I don't, it goes in a box on my shelf and it sits there until I find something to do with it. I don't ever throw anything out. So this is a twisted citron. And I really wanted the teal, but the teal, the peacock feathers, but it's not quite a blue. So I also wanted blue. So I guess you could say I added 2 blues. I didn't really. It was kind of a transition color between, if I would have used a different color, green. A transition color between the green and the blue. I don't know how you want to look at it. I just love using the teal, but it wasn't quite blue, so I chose to use both, and I think it looks really good. It doesn't look off or anything. So that's the Mermaid Lagoon that I chose to use for the blue. And see, I think you can use it just like this, not even use the shifter part of it. I think I loved the colors. Those are all the colors I'm using on it right now. But I wanted to use the whole stencil. So this is how it works. So the etched circles that are in between each row, you line that up over the color you already did. So where my pink circles are, that very first row on the left, I lined it up with the etched circles. And once that's lined up, I just tape it down in place, and then I'm going to move on to what the second color will be. So just like the rainbow order, the pink, orange, yellow, what does Kathy always say? Roy G. Biv? I remember hearing that a long time ago, way before I started making cards, and I never really thought about it. Well, it wasn't that long ago. I've only been making cards for like 4 or 5 years, but I just never thought I would ever use it, and now I hear it from Kathy Zilski all the time in her videos, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that from way back when. So look how pretty that's turning out so far. I love this stencil. It's so cool, and these colors are awesome. It's a really good rainbow color combo, and I can't wait to find out the new colors that are coming out at the end of August, I believe. Tim Holtz is doing a Facebook Live video. I saw on his Instagram channel. And they're adding new distress colors. Distress or just Distress Oxide? Either one can't wait for. I don't even have the speckled egg yet. I've ordered it. Unfortunately, they only had the Distress. They didn't have the Distress Oxide, so I had to go on the waiting list for the Distress Oxide, and then I've ordered the speckled egg in the Distress, but I just ordered it, so I have a feeling it'll be a couple weeks before it gets here. But I did clicked on the button to notify me when the Distress Oxide is in, and I will be getting that one too. So hopefully I'll be sharing those with you soon. All right, so let's just take a moment and appreciate this beautiful rainbow background. I love the stripes. I love the circles and the stripes. I love the colors. I love everything about this background. I just, there's things that you do that are just so pretty. You don't want to, I could just sit here and stare at this all day and be very happy with it. But I got to carry on. I got to finish the card. And I actually decided to put it horizontally. And I don't know. I just thought my sentiment would look better this way. And I had no idea what kind of card I was going to make. So I'm just going to get out a couple dies here and see which one tickles my fancy. I pulled out the Summertime die by Simon Says Stamp, the Congrats die by CZ Design, and I decided on this Proud of You die. I haven't used it yet, so I'm just going to trim the dies apart here, my little wire trimmers, and then make sure I trim off all those little metal parts that stick out, because those kind of hurt when you grab onto a die if you don't get those things off. But yeah, I just thought this particular die fit nicely against my background. And I knew I wanted one that was 2 different colors. So that's why I chose the Congrats with the shadow die, and then the Summertime would have been 2 different colors. I would have done 2 different colors, but I knew I wanted that because I wanted some nice contrast. See, contrast. There you go. I'm learning a lot in Kathy Zielski's videos. They're things that, you know, I like. I mean, I would have chose this anyway, but I wouldn't have. She's teaching me all the proper words to use, why I like it. And I showed, I brought that up to the camera to show all the little paper shavings that I have to like file off my dies. I'm not sure why this is happening on all my dies. I'm not really happy about it, but I just got the die cutting machine, so see, look here, you can see how it's not a perfect cut. There's a lot of little paper hairs that have to be filed off. And here I just grabbed a piece of white out of my just a scrap bin that I have of white paper, and I believe it was probably 110 pound, and I don't know, I just didn't like the way it cut, so I put it aside and I grabbed a piece of Nina 80 pound cardstock, and I'm going to cut it out 3 times. And it still happened on the 80 pound paper here, so I'm going to have to file all around every single letter on all 3 words, but I just wish I knew why it was doing that. So if anybody knows why that happens, please let me know. I don't remember it always happening though, so I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what happened, what changed. So I just have this little nail file that I'm going to go around every word, every letter, and file all the little paper hairs off. I'll save you the boredom of watching me do all of that though. So I have all my words cut out here. I have 3 of each, and now I'm just going to glue them together and then glue them to the shadow portion of the die. And I'm just looking at all 3 to see which one I want on top, see if there was one that was, you know, nicer than the other. They're all pretty much the same, so I'm using my glue syringe here. I'll have a link in the description below if you want to know where I got my glue syringe. It's pretty handy. Now for the smaller word, I'm going to use my Tonic or Nuvo precision glue pen, just because, you know, it's more precise. It's thinner than my syringe or the Gina K glue that I normally use. So I always have this glue on hand for these smaller dies. And I'm going to stack 3 of them and then move on to the last word. Now I accidentally pushed too hard on my syringe on my mat here, so I'm just taking my poker tool and trying to use up some of that glue on my glass mat here. And once I get all portions of my sentiment glued on the shadow here, I'm going to move on to some trimming. Now I chose, I say my die cutting machine is my favorite tool, I think, because a lot of the times I just use dies. I don't do a whole lot of stamping. A lot of my cards are just backgrounds and dies. But my paper trimmer is just as important, I think. And I actually asked this question in one of my videos. It might have been my, I think it was one of my giveaway videos or my craft room tour or something, and I was really surprised by how many people chose their paper trimmer. But when you think about it, it is very important to have a paper trimmer, so I would say that's my second most favorite tool. Now I decided I wanted to pop up my background on some craft foam, so I'm going to trim a piece down here. My craft foam was a little bit longer than my mini guillotine here, but the blade hangs out past the base where it cuts, so I was able to cut it just fine, but otherwise I could have just used scissors, or I could have busted out the big guillotine or guillotine, however you say that. I've heard it pronounced both ways, so I think both ways are okay. I'm using score tape on my craft foam on the front and the back, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I haven't used liquid glue on craft foam in a long time, and I kind of decided that I want to give it another shot. Next time I do it, if I remember, I'm gonna use liquid glue. But the perk of using the score tape is, you know, it's not going anywhere. Once you stick it down, it's stuck. And with liquid glue, you have a little bit of wiggle room. But I want my cards to stick, so I don't know. One day decided, I can't remember if I had a bad experience with liquid glue or what made me decide that score tape was the end-all be-all on craft foam. So I'm going to give liquid glue another shot, or another try. Okay, so I decided it needed a little something more on the front, and this is the frames die from Simon Says Stamp. Love this die right here. I love this frame. And I wanted to purposefully use the Gina K glue on this, because in one of my last videos I said that the Gina K is a little too thick or too wide for intricate dies, and it's not. I mean, you can certainly use the Gina K glue. I just like using the precision glue pen, usually on really thin or narrow dies like this. But I did want to show you and prove to you that you can use the Gina K glue if that's all you have. It didn't look straight to me, so I'm going to bust out my my T-square ruler here, whatever this thing is called, and just make sure that it is straight. And it is, but I don't know, for some reason it just did not look straight to me. When all else fails, use the T-ruler. I forgot to mention when I was trimming things that I did trim my background down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 because I wanted a black border around it. So I have a piece of black cardstock here, and I could have used a black card base, but I decided I wanted a white card base. So I just have a piece of black cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I have that beautiful little black border there. It looks good with the black frame, makes everything look cohesive. So I have a black background, I have a black frame, and then my sentiment also has a black frame. See how that ties everything together? And I just used my Gina K Connect glue there to put on the back of my sentiment. And then I'm going to center that the best I can, which I'm never too sure of. So I'm going to bust out my T ruler, or T square ruler again, just to make sure. And once I get it where I want it, then I will press it in place. See, because I use a liquid glue, it gave me a little bit of wiggle room. And I couldn't see what I was doing on my glass mat there, so I just pulled that piece of craft foam over and put it behind it so I could see what I was doing. I'm going to attach it to a top folding white card base, but it was a little bit wider than my card front here, so I just trimmed a little sliver down. And just to mix things up here, I'm going to use this Thermoweb tape runner. Usually I use liquid glue at this point so that I have that wiggle room. But ever since I learned that cool trick about using your score buddy to line up your background straight, I don't find it necessary to use liquid adhesive, so I am free to use whatever I want. That's Trigger, if you can hear him. He's in my craft room with me. I just wanted to say hi to you guys. And that's pretty much a wrap. I'm going to add a few gems off camera here, which you'll see in the picture. So thank you guys so much for watching my video this week. I hope you enjoyed this card that I made for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. And as usual, all the supplies I used will be listed and linked in the video description below. For more information on this card and the challenge, please head over to my blog, which is also in the description below. And if you liked my video, click on that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, leave me a comment or any questions you might have, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.